Remember the good times we had at the Star City Games $5,000 Open in Charlotte?
This is Evan Irwin live from Charlotte, and...
Well, on May 9th through the 11th, Richmond, Virginia will be hosting the second Star City Games $5,000 Standard Open, along with 2 huge vintage tournaments, a new $2,000 Standard Tournament, and much more. The Magic Show will be covering all the action as it happens, so get yourself up to Richmond and I'll see you there.
Hello, this is Owen Turtenwald, and welcome to the Magic Show.
My name is Darrell Riche.
Hello, this is Anthony Waters speaking into a microphone. I first started working in Seattle around 1992. Primarily, I was working in the video game industry, which actually is, I was working in the computer industry doing work for Microsoft, a few other companies in kids multimedia. And I made a friend named Rob Alexander, and Rob eventually introduced me to Jesper Mirfors, who was the art director at this point. I think Alpha had been out, and the second deck beta was coming out, and got a chance to show my work to Jesper. Jesper hired me, and I've been doing magic art off and on ever since.
Actually, I approached Wizards in '95. I sent them a portfolio, and I never heard from them. And I was a little disappointed, but at the time, my work really wasn't geared toward that, and at that time, it probably wasn't good enough. So I spent the next few years reworking and really trying to do some top-notch work. And so I was going around to different conventions, and there was a convention in Seattle, and I met Brian Snowdy, a magic artist, and he is really responsible for helping me to get in. He gave me the card for the art director, Dana Knudsen, and I went from there and showed up my portfolio, and they tried me on one card. So the first card was Core Haven, and there's a funny story about that because that card actually took me 2.5 weeks. I was scared to death, Yeah, it was just crazy. But during the portfolio review, Dana, he's looking through the work, and he's like, yeah, it's really some nice pieces, a few nice pieces here and there. And he said, yeah, I'll try you out on one card. And we got to talking, and, it was a really good interview. And on my way out, he said, don't let me down. I'll never forget that. Never. And it jump-started my whole career. Magic is really the funnest thing to do. It really is, because there's so much freedom that the art directors allow you. You can really come up with some really nice stuff. More and more people are saying that, man, we're really into magic mostly because of the art. They like the card just for that reason. Jeremy Jarvis, I think, is directly responsible for those kinds of things. He's an artist himself, and with that, he knows he really has a great eye for talented people.
First thing to do is you get the assignment, and you see if there's enough information there to help you start brainstorming.
They give us in an email a brief description on what they want for the card.
Most of the time, we're provided with good, clear information on where they'd like us to go. It's generally a little illustration. Show a creature being affected by a blue spell, or show these two guys fighting. We are given a very well-documented and illustrated style guide, which will, it's invaluable for an artist to consult over the course of designing illustration and generally look at that.
What I do is I kind of pin it down and start doing very rough sketches.
And then I start thinking about color scheme, what I want it to look like as a finished illustration, and what sort of fiddly bits and doodads I want to add to the piece. If it's a guy in armor, I want to see if I can take some, would be a good word, some liberties with the designs that have been presented, see if I can make it a little my own.
From there, you send it in to WotC, waiting for approval, which it could come back with changes, yeah, cross your fingers, or it could just go right through. more times than any, there are changes.
If I get approval, I take it to either a final pencil stage or I take it to a really tight version inside the computer. If it's the pencil, I scan it in, and then I'll do a few color comps. If there's time, I'll do 2 or 3 or more to try and get a sense of where I could go with it.
And then I go right to the painting. I actually take watercolor paper and I copy at Kinko's onto the watercolor paper and then paint right over the top of that.
And then I'll paint it. It's usually anywhere from a 1 to a 5 day process, depending on how elaborate the piece is and how many changes they may need. Primarily, I use Photoshop. I do like Painter. It has a profoundly, amazingly wondiferous brush engine, but it has a really alarming habit of vanishing periodically with 1 minute to 1 hour's worth of work. And I find that a little disconcerting. And so I primarily work with Photoshop.
Mostly oil and acrylics I work in, and I do some digital work, but I'm not as apt as some of the other artists. No, I probably won't, because I'm very traditional, old school. I'm one of the older guys, so I enjoy the physical aspect of painting. I mean, when you're actually physically moving things around, you're right there in the moment. And when I was doing digital, I felt kind of removed from that whole process. My favorite work? I got some pretty junky pieces too.
Cinderwall, because Jeremy Cranford was the art director at that time, and he trusted me enough to let me chase down my own idea for what would make a good illustration. He let me do it, and I think I created an illustration that is both evocative of what the card mechanics are and a little creepy, which was my hope, was my goal.
Absolutely.
My favorite piece is the moon cami.
Oh, yeah?
Moon cami of the crescent moon. Yeah.
Dreadslag, because they asked for a creature that was made up of tormented nightmare figures, and I also feel like I managed to pull that one off too.
Absolutely.
Another one would be the Rorik's Bladewing. That was a very popular card in its day. So
Stalking Vengeance, because I'm a big fan of a Polish artist named Zlatoslaw Beksinski. He's a surrealist. I mean, you could argue that he's somebody who could inherit the crown of Hieronymus Bosch. I mean, really amazing work. And so that was heavily influenced by the way he approaches his work.
that was through Dana Knutson as well. And there was a really brief description. It just said, have a kick-ass dragon with 4 wings. And that's basically it. It was a very brief description, and it was really nice to work on. I've actually done conceptual design for Wizards of the Coast, and what's nice about that is that the guys who do conceptualize more, they get those kinds of assignments, and they really allow you to let loose and do your thing. Some guys, they want all of the information, I've been told. They want the character, the color, all of that. They want everything kind of laid out. So I really enjoy having that kind of freedom working in Magic.
Again, I got a chance to work on that style guide.
Oh, great.
And there are 2 things I got to say about it right off the bat. One, I dearly hope that WotC will actually get around to making, even if it's just a little sketchbook, something that will show or give players the chance to see or showcase the talent that went into designing that deck. The 2 people who really just shined in the style guide process and deserve rave reviews are Omar Ryan and Steve Prescott. They both did phenomenal character design work, and the elves, the fairies, the giants are directly the result of those 2 artists. Tremendous talent. One of the things that Lorwyn does is it, in a kind of a dark way, it bridges children's book illustration and Magic, and I think it's been done very effectively. No.
Scariness. You can't get too scary.
Well, I mean, American folk tales, or not folk tales, I shouldn't say folk tales, I should say fairy tales, are sanitized. Heavily sanitized. The stories that they came from, the Brothers Grimm, Hans Christian Andersen, people were dying all the time, man. You think of Red Riding Hood. There are like a dozen different iterations of Red Riding Hood they've got incest in them, and sex, and death, and blood, and the Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid dies in the end of the original story. She doesn't live. She dies. So me personally, maybe it's just because I'm getting old and crotchety, but my feeling is that there's both sides of the coin. There's the light and the dark. And if you're going to have it really, really light, you got to show the really dark side. These people are fighting for their existence. Their world is literally being turned upside down, and they're fighting to maintain some vestige of what they had. And unfortunately, in order to do that, they've had to transform themselves. They have been transformed by the circumstances. I would much rather work in an environment that is that dynamic than doing really cute, happy things that have cute, happy adventures that end happily and cutely.
Well, thanks a lot for your time.
All right, thank you.
I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time.
You're most welcome. Thank you for this opportunity.
Hey, little apple blossom, what seems to be the problem? All the ones you tell your troubles to, they don't really